Let's move on to Class A. This is a really fun bracket to take a look at. The 1 versus 8 Miller taking on Point-Jefferson. And Point-Jefferson, they're a team you've watched. Tell us about what maybe could make them a surprise team in this tournament.
I think when we talk about matchups, you talk about position matchups too. So Katie Fernholtz obviously is a big dog for Miller. And Point-Jefferson's really experienced in the middle. You have Kenna Curry, who has some height, can block the ball, and you have Carly Corder, who is even taller than her. So,
exactly.
I think that's a really big plus for Point-Jefferson. And then on the back end, you also have Caitlin Shaika.
Right, and you talk about Montague, Montague Schlechter, who's been, to our events. You talk about Rachel Oldmuller, who's got how many assists over her career, right, playing with those guys. And you talk even about somebody like Storm Johnson, who's a junior now. And, the thing I think will maybe help Miller a little bit is they went to that tournament outside the Twin Cities this year and got to play some larger schools. So they've played a much better schedule than they have maybe in the past. There isn't that newness and those nerves that'll come from some of the other teams. So this is, to me, I would have penciled this back in August as a semifinal matchup, not a first-round matchup.
The 4-5 matchup may be even more interesting. You talked about it. Sioux Falls Christian getting in at that 5 seed, taking on Winter, who's earned a top 4 seed here. They feel like they belong as well. Darren, get us started. What do you think about Winter versus Sioux Falls Christian?
Winter, I think, don't sleep on them because maybe you don't know about them as much as we do Sioux Falls Christian. But Sioux Falls Christian is talented 1 through 6 and then on the bench as well. And you've probably watched them a little more than I have.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be a great matchup. Not only, maybe Sioux Falls Christian is a little bit more experienced, I guess, in a way. It's just such a hard matchup because each team has a player in each position that can score. And both liberos are really impressive, too.
That's how you set the bar with that matchup, 4-5. How about the 3-6? McCook Central Montrose and Groton area. McCook Central Montrose, I feel like they've done everything they possibly could except, beat Sioux Falls Christian.
They all played last year. They've all had state tournament experience. They've all played together quite a bit. And I think I'm pretty sure they're on a mission.
And they look like a senior team. I think 5 of their main starters are seniors. They run a 6-2, so that's kind of interesting sometimes when it comes to matchups. It's going to be such a contrast in experience and excitement.
Yeah, Groton got off to such a great start this year. I think about the first half of the season they were undefeated. Then they lost a couple, but I think that they're maybe feel like they're playing their best ball by the end of the year too.
Their practice session on Wednesday is going to be very big for them to get them familiar, enjoy it. I know this is a loose group, like contrasting that way with the two maybe focus and mental approaches of both these teams. With Groton, there's just a bunch of goofballs and they're losing. So they're going to have to play that way, like they have nothing to lose.
All right, let's move to that 2-7 matchup. Dakota Valley takes on Madison. Madison, they've had an interesting season as well, not being talked about, and then making their push into the tournament where Dakota Valley, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the only team in Class A that has beaten Sioux Falls Christian this year. Is that right? So they've got to have some confidence coming into this one too. What do you think, Haley? We've got a 2-7 matchup here with 2 very good teams from the same conference.
Yeah, I think we kind of go back to the theme of AA when we talk about this matchup because I think this is their 3rd time playing each other. They played this season and went to 5. So not the typical maybe 2-7 matchup. I think Dakota Valley is a little bit more even keel. Madison, they can score the ball when they want to. Again, we talked about Abby Brooks last time. She can defend the net. So I think it'll be a really fun matchup because, again, the familiarity, maybe they pick up on some things last time that really worked for them and they key in on those.
There's a lot of teams going in here with title hopes on their mind, aren't there?
Yeah, and a lot of veteran teams, let's just say, I think that this was the year we're talking about. Remember how last year AA was so senior heavy, right? And maybe Class A had some underclassmen. There was a lot of very talented seniors here. And then teams that have experience and have high hopes coming in, and also some teams that are battle tested, so there won't be as much of that newness factor in the Class A ranks.
Right.
And so, it's going to be a fun class to watch.